I want to thank everybody who answered my post on Facebook. I asked for some questions. These answers are already on my website, but there's a lot of information to sift through. If you go on my blogs, you can go back page after page after page, and it could be a long process to find what you're looking for. So if I can do a quick helpful video to solve to answer your questions, I'm happy to do that. So let's go. So Alexander Burias asked, "Hi Andrew, what essential tools do I need to start customizing a decent harp?" That's a great question. I think from the very beginning, you need something that can support and plink reeds, right? And so a good stable plinker. You need a good tool to be able to apply pressure to reeds, to shape reeds by gapping or doing reed work. I'll show you a little bit, and also that will allow you to see the shape of the reed from the side, both sides, which will help you answer questions. So a plinker and a brass tool. You can use a toothpick. Use a wooden toothpick to apply pressure to reeds, but I don't like the toothpick because if the toothpick gets stuck in between the reed and the slot and you pull back, it'll get even more stuck. See, and you can actually damage the reed. Whereas the brass is smooth, the little wood fibers won't dig in and twist your reed apart. But in a pinch, if I was in a restaurant and I needed to fix my harp real quick and all I had was a toothpick, I'd give it a shot. But so there's tools you can get by with and tools that are better. A file. I use a Grobet O. Is the coarseness is 0, so that you can tune reeds. And if you have a good reed support tool and a good file, you can lower the pitch or you can raise the pitch of a reed without changing the shape of the reed. You can also use scrapers and rotary tools to do that. These days I've found that the file is the quickest. It doesn't need sharpening, the batteries don't run out, so that's my favorite. And also essential, you need some sort of reed wrench to align the reeds in the slot, because you drop a harp or you do anything to them, the reeds can get out of alignment. Okay, and then you could have more advanced tools. Like this is a way to tell if the reed plate is flat, and we can see here that this reed plate is not flat. It's actually going to be a big problem when you put the harp together and you put it on the comb. You see how much space there is here under this. So this reed plate is bowed this way. It's never going to sit properly. You're never going to have a seal, and because the slots are, instead of the slot being straight, they're curved. Well, when the reed enters the slot, you're going to have trouble shaping that reed so that it has maximal impact, right? So tools to straighten reed plates are useful if you want to take it to a certain level. This is an embossing tool. That's another thing that you can do to increase it. But we're getting into is it essential, is it non-essential? That depends on what you're going for. So Shan Oliver, what are the things, processes players can do to get and keep their harps in top shape? No overblow, just a damn good playing harp. So that ties into this question. The basic tools that you'll need for that is reed shaping tools. And if you're just at a basic level, you could just focus on flat sanding the draw reed plate. I have videos on that I can link to, and using a flat comb. That will get you a lot more power. And then just correcting problems with the reed shape. Look at the reed from the side, press the reed through the slot, and look at how much of the reed goes through the slot at the same time. Here, for example, this is just a stock reed plate that I took out of the package. So when I push down on this reed, let me look with my own eyes, I see a lot of light coming from the back, and the reed seems to disappear at the front. So if I could change the shape of this reed so that it all enters at the same time. Now, how would I do that? If I was just doing quick and dirty, I'd sort of figure, okay, it's sort of from this part on that enters the slot first. So let me put my finger over here and then bend that up starting from that point. Okay, so now that's raised way high, and I'll just use my tool here to lower everything down. So you see how in 2 steps, I've lowered the base of the reed relative to what it was. Now, I could look at the shape now, but it's not going to be really telling because I need to plink it. I need to stress relieve what's going on. And then we can see now we got more of the reed. It's sort of further back now of the reed is contributing. Maybe there's still a little bit of misshapen reed in the middle, but overall you play it on your lips, and sort of that's looking at it from this side as well. Can you see that? No, you can't in this video. Just sort of straighten this out. If you test with your lips, you can appreciate that point where you get more power and you say, okay, what I just did actually was helpful. So use your eyes as a guide, use your lips and mouth to draw air through the slot so you can have that feedback, and you can get you'll have to do this for each reed. Now you see it took me about a minute, so figure it takes 10-15 minutes to go through the reed plate and find the worst 3 or 4 reeds, maybe focus on holes 2 and 3 more, because those are very important. If you play in second position, you want that typical harmonica bending sound. If you want those to come in, focus a lot of attention on these reeds and then the rest of the harp. So do 15 minutes of just sort of corrective work on your reeds, flat sand your draw reed plate, put it together, and then you should have Shan, you should have a damn, as you say, just a damn good playing harp. I like it. So a couple of questions on overblows. How do you get a 7 overblow? Who asked that? I know John Kirkoven asked about overblow. Randy Linden, how do you set up a harmonica to overblow? Zvika Dror Sparrow, taking on the context of this group, making the harp more tolerant for hole 7 overdraw. Those are all great questions, and they all come down to there's nothing special. You just got to get a good interface, a good, perfect relationship between the reed entering the slot all at the same time. Here's a 7. This is the same reed plate. I just took it out and I happened to notice that the 7, there's a lot to be said about this 7 blow reed. Okay, so let's look at how it came from the factory. Are you happy with this? Okay, I don't think I am, and I'm going to have to sort of follow some steps to figure it out. Okay, let's look at the reed from the side and push the reed through the slot, and we get this sort of one picture of what's going on. We'll look at the reed from the other side, and we get a different picture. It's the exact same thing. I'm just not used to doing it from this side. You want to have the same idea of what's going on when you look at it from this angle rather than this angle. Okay. Now, the problem is, to my eye, this reed is a little bit shifted to this side, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'll do some further steps to figure it out. Sequence, Michael McDavid. So what is the typical sequence of technical maintenance events start to finish if you are totally setting up and half valving, embossing, and gapping a harp? Okay. And somebody else asked how Ed Hopwood, how can you avoid bending reeds out of shape when you tune, and what are the best tools for this? I'm having to put too much pressure with scrapers. Okay, all those questions go hand in hand. So I can tune a reed, change its pitch, tune a reed, without changing its shape. So therefore, now on the other hand, I can't change the shape of a reed without tuning it. Okay, I'll say that again. I can change the pitch of a reed without changing its shapes. I can do that, like I said, with good tools by proper support and using a good file to file brass off. So I can change the pitch without changing shape. But every time I change the shape of a reed, I will change its pitch. Okay, that you can't avoid that because you are work hardening the brass, and that'll change its pitch. So the best sequence of events are do the stuff that affects the other stuff first, and then do the stuff which doesn't affect any of the work that you've previously done last. Okay, so we are going to eliminate factory defects. We're going to do that first, and that'll allow me to see the shape of the reed. Okay, right now the reed plate is curved, the reed is out of alignment, so I'm not trusting my eyes when I'm looking at the shape of the reed. Okay, so let's fix those things first. Let's change the shape of a reed so that it's perfect, and then we're going to tune it. So those are the sequence of events. Okay, so in this case, we know the reed plate is bowed, so I'm just going to take a little shortcut and I'm going to unbow. I'm just applying pressure this way. And I'm just taking a shortcut here. I'm only working on this lot. Usually I do the whole reed plate. What am I looking at? So we're going to look at this side. So it's still got a bit of a curvature there. Always undershoot. Always undershoot. Because it's easier to go back and do more than to go back and undo. Alright, I'm speaking like in riddles here. Just applying a bit of pressure on either side. Wham. So that's perfect. I'm going to see if I overshot by looking at this side. So that's bang. That's bang on. There's no light coming through that. So I've straightened this reed plate. Okay. Now, it seems to me that 7 is a little tilted to the side. Embossing here will bring in those edges, and it'll paint a better picture for me. Okay, let's take a look. My thumb's in the way, I'm sorry. So I'm looking at this light through the slot. Let's emboss this side. And the tip. So, and then give it a plink to see if it buzzes. Okay, now you know that you've embossed. You can feel there's a little catch, there's a little edge, a little area of brass that you've raised. Now, with the sides more pushed in, I can clearly see. Point this out to you. It's hard working. I still haven't gotten used to working at a distance on camera here. Okay, but we can see that the tip is closer to the slot here, and it's further away. And can you see that there's a clear picture that this reed needs to be shifted. So before we do any fancy reed work and spend a half an hour trying to get this reed to be perfect, I'm going to shift the reed that way. Okay, and the way I do that is I redo the riveting job. Okay, so I take my file and I want the reed to go that way, so I'm going to create, this is in my video, base centering. All this information is pretty much, I've already put it out there. So see how that rivet is slanted? Okay, it has a nice little angle that way. So the next step is to take some material off the back of this rivet to give it room, so that when I whack it in, it has somewhere to go and it doesn't enlarge the hole. This allows me to do it a couple of times. So I'm going to give it one more tap before I bring it up to the camera. And when you're shifting the reed over, when the rivet actually does move the reed over, the rivet rotates at the same time. So that's sort of a clue that you've done the job you want to do. Get some white space so that you can see what's going on. So you see this rivet now? It's rotated and it's shifted. Get the camera to focus. So that's where we want it. It's now centered. Okay, so the reed plate is straightened, the rivet is centered. Now I can start worrying about the shape, and let's take a look at the slot. Now sometimes you might need to touch up the embossing, but it's actually pretty good. I'm happy with the embossing. So now we work on that reed shape. Let's see how it... It's a lot of work to get this reed to move because the shape is so bad. Okay, so pushing, just sort of a reference here, I'm pushing in the middle of the slot. There's a lot of light in the back. Okay, how does it look on the other side? Same sort of thing. Now, let me reshape this reed. We're going to bring the end of the reed down. I'm pushing on the back of the reed. Some forceful pressure. A couple of plinks, sort of to reset where we are. So that's gone down. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a bit more aggressive. I'm going to bend the reed up further down. So there's going to be a bend coming up this way. And you can see how that reed is sticking up. And now we're going to lower everything into place. It helps having a good plinker that when the reed was pretty sunken down, can dig in there and get it. Yeah, you couldn't do that with a piece of paper. So that reed is starting to look better. I'd want it to be a bit further down on this side. That's pretty good. Let's just do one more little... Let's test actually. So a lot less effort now to get that reed to work. I'm going to push the far back part of the reed down a little bit more. I'm going to sort of do the same thing. Take a look at the shape. It's hard to work through the camera. So it seems, let's just focus this. It seems that this part of the reed is a little bit higher than this part of the reed on this side. So I'm going to, I call that roll, right? Like an airplane going down the runway. Pitch moves the airplane up. Yaw moves the airplane like a car steering, and roll is when the airplane rolls one side to the left. So this reed was rolled a little bit to the left. We straightened it out, or I hope I did. I applied some pressure on one side at the base, and that raised this side. So we're going to push everything down again, both sides at the back. I can even hear by plinking, it's very subtle. The room has to be very quiet. But even plinking sounds stronger. And now here when I push in the reed, almost all of, can you appreciate that? Almost all of the light disappears at once. So that's super strong, a really powerful return on the investment for the amount of air that I'm drawing in. I get a lot of decibels. Now it squeals a bit when I choke it. So I need to tweak the shape to get rid of that squealing, or my overblow, my overbend, my overdraw here in this case, the 7 overdraw, will be a problem. Yeah, I don't deal with squeals with wax. I fix them with reed shape, and then once I've done that, I might put on a bit of wax. You shouldn't eliminate squealing with wax, because you send them the harp and then 6 months later they send you the harp back because it starts to squeal again. So use reed shape to get the job done, and then use wax to give you a little bit more insurance. So do the same with the draw note and your overdraw. This is the blow reed. So 7 overdraw is no different than any other overbend. Get the reed shape to be perfect, and adjust the reed shape to respond strongly to light breath, maximal return on investment, and you will find that your overdraws are free of the problems that are giving you trouble. The squealing, what is it? John Kirkhoven said, "How do you make an overbend sing?" How do you make a working OB sing? How do you get it so that the overbend can be stable and supple? Well, this is what you do. There was another question about gaskets. Les Hilton, some thoughts on using a gasket seal and valving would be of interesting. Gaskets are garbage. They're not garbage, but they don't solve a problem. In this case, remember the reed was bowed, the reed plate was bowed this way. Okay, now imagine as well if it would have been there would have been a bow this way as well. So one side of the slot is lower than the other. That reed is never going to pass through the slot. You want the reed, pretend this is the reed, pretend this is a slot. It has to hit both sides, or it has to pass through both sides of the slot at exactly the same time to get the maximal power. Well, if one side of the slot is tilted down, or if your slot is curved that way, the reed won't cooperate. And if you solve the air tightness, I mean, there's also the problem when the reed is bowed, that when the comb sits on it, well, you have an air leak on either side. So if you're filling that up with something, a gasket material, you're going to solve the air leak, but you're not going to solve your reed shape problem and your slot problem and your reed efficiency. So you actually might even make it worse. So for overblows, gaskets don't work. Gaskets also tend to absorb tone. They absorb vibrations, they absorb air, and they absorb tone. So you lose power, you gain a bit of power because you have more compression, you have a more airtight chamber, but the sound, the decibels that are coming out of that reed are getting lost. So it's sort of you're winning one battle, but you're losing the war. Okay, for maybe a quick and dirty repair, maybe they're worth the effort. But let's say you're having a problem with a 3-draw bend, and you put in a gasket, you're probably not going to solve your problem. You're still going to have squeals. You're still going to have an airy, a lot of work to get those bends, and you want them to be easy to bend so that you can bend them to precision, right? So you get the power, but you won't get the precision with the gasket. You really need to do this work. There's no silver bullet, right? People are saying, "Oh, I want the secrets." Well, the secrets is, you saw how long it took me to get just one reed to work on all the steps. I haven't even tuned it yet. I mean, that's why a custom harp is a custom harp, right? There's no shortcuts. Okay, you have to rebuild from the ground up. So I hope that helps with this series of questions.